Hello and welcome to the Theatre of Dreams on WION. With me, Eugeneson Lyngdoh. We have seen many firsts in Russia 2018. Lots of goals, penalties, VAR decisions overturned, and now we have had our first penalty shootout and also the first time that we have seen a fourth substitute in a World Cup match. But nothing matters for the hosts. Their World Cup party has just reached the stratosphere after sending 2010 champions Spain home. It wasn't the most exciting of games, and I'm not sure Ashley Westwood and Eugeneson Lyngdoh enjoyed much of it, but it is their solemn duty to give us some entertaining analysis from the game. So best of luck, guys. Have fun. Okay, initial reactions. What do you make of it? Spain out, Russia through?
Yeah, obviously wouldn't have called that before the game. Expected Russia to probably be a little bit more attacking with being the home side and trying to entertain the crowd. But they came with a game plan, they stuck to it. Obviously it's worked. Spain frustrated. I thought they might have done a little bit more, but tempo of their play, slow, steady, patient build-up wasn't enough to unlock the Russian defence. What
do you make of this, Eugeneson? Are you stunned, or you think that once it gets into a phase like a penalty shootout, anything can happen?
Like I said earlier, this is what they wanted, so they were just looking at penalties, but to look at Spain has been very dissatisfying here. They've just monotonous, they've been the same, they haven't really changed the way they played, and after they took off Costa, I felt that they didn't have any more options up front, and they really didn't have a second plan.
Can Spain think we were undone here, that we are the unlucky side? Because when I look at this game overall, seeing the quality that they possess, you didn't see too much of it from them. It was like they were content sitting back, probing. But this is the World Cup. At some point, you have to grab the game by the scruff of its neck.
Yeah, they certainly can't feel unlucky. It's catch-22 when you're in so much control. I don't know exactly what it was, 70-odd% possession. And
More than that, I think it was close to 80.
Yeah, and I think if you just keep the ball and we keep moving them from side to side and we keep probing with one or two passes, up, comes back, next to the side, eventually you're going to catch the Russian side out of shape and then we're going to be able to punish them. But it wasn't to be. They kept shuffling around Russians, they moved in tandem, they were well organised. And Spain didn't move the ball quick enough, and there wasn't a plan B. I think when you're huffing and puffing for 90, 100, 110 minutes, you've got to try something different. Maybe try and get the ball wide, get some crosses in the box, maybe some long diagonals, anything to mix it up. But it was just the same repetitive play, and the Russians were well prepared.
I'm not off the target when I say it was one of the most boring games of this World Cup. I mean, there was quite a lot of time when you're just looking at the screen and wondering, what the hell's going on, guys? This is a World Cup. This is a round of 16, especially after what we saw yesterday in the first two knockout games.
When we saw the lineup, when they put Asensio in, I thought that maybe he was a plan B. He would give a different dimension. Maybe he would run at players, use his space. But it didn't work, and they all looked to be similar kind of players and they were just happily passing, and they never really penetrated the box, and all they did was try to shoot from outside and just side-to-side passing, and Russia were very happy to do that, to be shuffling from one end to the other end.
Did you hear that roar in the stadium when Aspas missed? It was like something. It was like a full nation celebrating in that sense. But when you get to a situation like this, when you've bossed the game, when you're going into a penalty shootout, is the pressure on the home team or is the pressure on a team like Spain who have the pedigree?
I think obviously a few of those have been in the situation before. Obviously the home crowd makes a slight difference. It's always a bit anxious, there's a bit of unknown when you're stepping up for a penalty and you're shooting towards the home fans. But I think normally the advantage is with the first penalty takers, and Spain took first and scored, so then you'd expect the pressure to come tumbling onto Russia, but they handled it really well. Obviously didn't miss. And then it was the home crowd that got behind the fans, and the Spanish lads just caved in, really.
Eugene, you've taken penalties before. You've taken penalties in matches. How do you approach a shootout, especially in a big pressure situation like this?
Obviously, with the situations, the circumstances of what's happening around, maybe depending, I need a score, I don't need a miss, But from my personal point of view, I would normally choose one side, and I'll stick to one side rather than go up there and then change my side. It obviously plays tricks on your mind and you might just miss. So for me, I would personally choose one side. And
an interesting stat at the end of this game, Spain have never beaten a host team at a World Cup. The last time they lost to a host team was in 2002. Fernando Hierro, the coach, was the captain that day, and he took He took the kick against South Korea, but his teammates couldn't get over the line. This brings to an end a disappointing campaign in a sense for Spain, isn't it? Pre-tournament, come in as favourites, coach gets sacked, somehow get over the line. Ashley must be also feeling a bit sad because you thought they had it in them to go all the way. But for Spain, I mean, when they go back home and they look at how this campaign has unfolded, they somehow just didn't convince you, Eugene, did they?
They didn't really convince. Like, it looked like they were happy coming to a tournament, like play the way they play. I've been playing throughout. But they look confident with the ball, keep the ball every now and then. But then, you know, like they never really had much to do. Defensively, they were very shaky. But today they didn't have much to do defensively. But Russia did, just defend, finish them with what they knew was best for them.
Yeah, can you show it to us, Ashley? Perhaps if you could tell us what the Russians did so well, because it's easy to say that, you know, we're going to sit back and defend. But usually we've seen the big teams somehow get over the line in this World Cup. All it needs is one chance. But you're saying that that Spain didn't have a plan B. Perhaps you could go back to the Argentina game. The first time they crossed and Rojo was there to knock the ball in.
Yeah, I mean, the way it's set up was Russia was supposed to be in a 3-4-3, and that's only when they had the ball. Unfortunately for Russia, they didn't have the ball very much, but unfortunately, or maybe even fortunately, Spain was the 4-2-3-1. The secret to the success of Russia was when they defended. Obviously, when they defended, they dropped into a 5-4-1. So the three central defenders, all of a sudden, these are the three that were trying to stay between the width of the box, and then the two wide of the four was the ones that would drop back into this position here. So all of a sudden they became a 5, a 4 and a 1, and not much space to play. And as obviously Spain attack and go up the pitch, this is kind of what you've seen a lot of. There'll be Diego Costa that was more or less on his own, you know, against three defenders, if you like, so he was trying to patrol these three. There was no space in between the units. The wide players would be faced, you know, with 1v1 situations, and there was no space for them to run into. They'd try and get the wide people into these areas, but there was always too many numbers. Even, you know, Zuba in the first half was dropping really, really deep, and they weren't concerned about doing anything until the ball got probably within, you know, probably about 40-45 yards from the goal would be the first port of defence, the first line of defence. And because there's not a lot of space, obviously you've got an 18-yard box, and then there's probably 25-30 yards in front maximum, and they're just so congested. So Spain were just keeping the ball all day long, obviously just moving the ball from side to side, but they just couldn't move the Russians around. You know, basically it would just be one up, and then the ball would move back into position, the ball would come over here, Zuba would maybe go to it first, and it was just this kind of, all day long this would happen, and they couldn't find the ball to get through into the forwards' feet, and that was the big problem. What they tried to do was move the ball quick. All of a sudden there might be a little bit of a space like this, and then the ball into the front, but it was never on, because the Russians were so congested and so compact, and there was no way through.
What would you have done, Eugeneson? You know, the statistics will show Spain got more than 1,000 passes. But as Ashley's been saying, there's no point getting those 1,000 passes if you can't find that one through ball, which you are known to play. What would you have done differently? If you were Spain and you face a team which is sitting like this, is there anything else you can do? Or perhaps just pray that, take some shots from outside the box and pray that somehow it swerves in?
No, like Coach said earlier, we'd move the ball faster, attract them one side and switch, and then get a cross in. Just as like what Argentina did, they get crosses in, panning the defenders, and you get more shots on target, which is important because the more shots you shoot, the more attempts on target, yet the conversion rate is obviously, you might get a goal.
Okay, let's go back to the first 2 days of this World Cup, Ashley. Lopetegui gets sacked. They have a game coming up in 48 hours against Portugal, and they play one of the best games we have seen them play. Perhaps that was a sort of a reaction from them. But since that game, we didn't see Spain impose themselves. You thought they would kick on, and based on that performance, you said that they can actually go on and win it. But the performance kept a point against Morocco.
Yeah, I think you've got to look at teams that were playing and how teams set up. Now, the first game against Portugal, it was, you know, was a little bit of rivalry, if you like, you know, neighbouring countries. Ronaldo obviously plays in Spain, and there were two teams at it trying to attack, so all of a sudden the game's a little bit open and it suits Spain. But the more teams Spain play that play defensive, the harder they find it, because they have this slow, patient build-up, and teams find it hard just to pack the defence, sit in front of the penalty area and not be broken down. They said it today before the game that we find it difficult to play against teams that park the bus, and that's exactly the tactic that the Russians used. You know, the Russians in the previous game have been 4-2-3-1, open, nice and attacking. and probably the key was Cheryshev was on the bench. He's been their most influential attacking player, so it shows you that they were trying to be defensive and resolute, and that's what has been Spain's Achilles heel. They can't break down packed defences.
And what it also shows you is that they haven't moved on much from the 2010 template. I mean, we've seen Germany suffer as well because they came with a very similar template to this World Cup. And the teams knew what to do to stop that that German threat. And is that the problem with Spain as well, that they're carrying on the same philosophy for the last 2008 was when they won the Euros, and then from then on, 2010, 14, and now 18. No new ideas.
Now, if you look at the personnel that Spain have, they all have the same quality. So their strengths are to keep the ball. You hardly have players who have got space up front, or like for instance, like England have got a variety of players in them. Spain have got players who are the same. So normally their trend is to play to their strengths.
Ashley, looking at the Spain team, I know Russia have won, but looking at the Spanish team, do you think that it's the end of an era in a sense, especially the 2008, 2010 batch of players in that team? The Ramoses, Piqués, Iniesta, Silva. Do you think that this is perhaps the last World Cup, but do you think they're still going to be around for a while?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's some players there, 30 plus, that you won't see in the next World Cup. The Euros is coming. But I think it's an end of an era for that style of play, if I'm being honest. You know, that tiki-taka style of play with the false number 9s, trying to play through the thirds. Everybody's wised up to that now. Everybody knows that you can sit off, you know, possession is 9/10 of the law, you say, but it doesn't win you football matches. So if you sit off and hit teams on the counter-attack, you find the Spanish, you know, full-backs far forward, you can get 2v2s on the halfway line with the expansive central defenders, and if you stay nice and disciplined and nice and organised, it's easier to play against that tiki-taka stuff. Yes, it's frustrating because you don't have the ball, but it's, you know, people have caught on to that. So for me, there needs to be an extra dimension. It needs to be a quick forward. It needs to be, you know, sometimes put 2 forwards up there, maybe get some crosses in, maybe mix it up a bit. You know, maybe even think about when the opposition come out to play, when they start attacking us, can we move it nice and quick and catch them in transition rather than a slow, patient build-up? So I think it's more of an end of that style rather than an end of an era.
Yes, 2 games in this World Cup. Germany against South Korea, 70% possession. Spain having over 1,000 passes, but in the end, both those teams lost. Both those teams have gone home.